During one of my last videos, I speculated on the death of open world games as a genre, and this got me thinking about other game genres and when/if they will die. One of the most interesting genres to explore, I reckon, is the Souls-like genre. Created by From Software with Demon's Souls, and then further refined into the formula we all know and love with Dark Souls, it is safe to say that the Souls-like genre has taken the gaming world by storm over the past decade. You got Dark Souls, you got Bug Souls, you got China Souls, you got Ninja Souls, you even have Star Wars Souls. It seems like every other game that comes out has taken influence from Demons and Dark Souls in some way, which is why it makes it so interesting to speculate on when the genre will run its course, when it will light its last bonfire. It's a pretty complicated answer, and to start, we need to travel all the way back to the Triassic period of the 1970s and discuss there are many points in history in which you can look back upon and say that was a turning point for humanity. You got the invention of fire, the Bronze Age, the Industrial Revolution, the birth and death of Jesus Christ, allegedly. Well, they're all wrong, because the most important point in human history was the 29th of November 1972 when Pong was released, and essentially created the art form of video games we know and love. Now, there were games released before Pong. Think Space War with its absolutely incredible and just engaging gameplay of dots and lines. But Pong was the first truly successful arcade video game. The arcade game industry only grew from there, with games becoming more complex with the likes of Space Invaders, Asteroids, Pac-Man and Donkey Kong all dominating. The trick about arcade games was underneath the relatively simple controls and goals was a punishing experience designed for you to fail. This is so players would spend their money on your game because, it's pretty fun. But then they would also die relatively quickly, so that meant they need to fork out more cash to keep playing. They were highly addictive and highly popular. In the arcade's peak, it brought in over $7.7 billion, which, adjusted for inflation today, is over $7. Probably. I don't know, the stock market's crashing right now, I'm not too sure. Unfortunately, the arcade market crashed during the mid-80s due to oversaturation in the market, the growing public concerns about the harmful effects of video games, and most importantly, the rise of the home game console market. Home game consoles meant that to play a game, you only had to pay one time, and you could play as many times as you want with that one-time payment. What a deal! Now, creating games where the whole point is to make the player die in this new market does not seem like the best strategy to me, and thankfully developers agreed with my, frankly genius assessment and changed the way they made their games. They made them a lot more accessible, which in layman's terms means they made them easier. In place of the limited life systems that arcade games used to use was an unlimited life system featuring infinite checkpoints that, when you died, sent you back at most a couple minutes. As the home game console market grew and grew, developers had to cater to a wider audience, so gaming trended more and more towards becoming cinematic experiences designed to entertain, not challenge the player. Really, this all came to a head in 2007 when Nintendo released the Wii, arguably the most accessible game console ever. It was solely marketed towards families and people who have never played a game before in their life. It introduced a lot of new players to video games. Players who would rather play a casual game like Wii Sports Resort than a hardcore sports game like Punch-Out. This was the state of gaming in 2009. Games had moved far away from the challenging arcade experiences and had become so easy to the point where the majority of players preferred a more forgiving and accessible experience with very little challenge at all. Now, don't get me wrong, hard games still existed. They were a relatively niche subgenre reserved for only the most hardcore of gamers. Like me in 2009. No hard game had really broken into the mainstream gaming consciousness until a certain game came out. And that game was called Demon's Souls was released in 2009. Developed by From Software and directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki. The game was unlike anything else out at the time. It was a dark and moody experience. Its dark and heavy fantasy setting running contrary to the JRPG's primary coloured charm aesthetic. I know 5 seconds ago I said Demon's Souls wasn't like anything else out at the time, but it did take heavy inspiration from Software's previous game series, King's Field. Namely, its unrelenting bleakness and, frankly, wall-punching difficulty. It is impossible to talk about Demon's Souls without discussing that wall-punching difficulty. arguably the thing it is most famous for. Now, Miyazaki isn't some psycho who likes to see people struggle and suffer with his games. Rather, the difficulty serves a part of a greater purpose, bringing gaming back to its basics. From the outset, we started making it based on a back-to-basics concept. We wanted a game-like game, something that was fun in the way games used to be. Miyazaki had a vision of creating a game that brought back what the main draw of old-school arcade gaming was: the gameplay and the difficulty. We weren't built around cutscenes or scenarios, as in so many action RPGs. Rather, our aim was to have the player feel rewarded simply by playing the game. Not for completing a quest or finding a prize or winning loot, but by simply playing and experiencing the game. When you play Demon's Souls, you play Demon's Souls. There are no long cutscenes that you sit through, no gameplay sections where you just hold forward or button mash. It is just you, fully locked into the game, because if you're not, you will die within 20 seconds. Making a game like this, with this level of difficulty in the year of our Lord 2009, was certainly a risk. In fact, Miyazaki was so scared that Sony would not publish the game because of this difficulty that they kept it a secret during development. So when the 2008 Tokyo Game Show rolled around and the very first Demon's Souls demo was playable, Sony's president spent 2 hours playing it, couldn't even get past the opening area, and called it an unbelievably bad game.
The world could do it's like sucks. Damn.
With this glowing seal of approval, Demon's Souls was released in 2009 exclusively in Japan, precisely because Sony thought it would be a flop. But, like the little engine that could, the game just kept chugging, kept making noise, until finally it was released worldwide, and from then on, there was no stopping this train. Critical acclaim and immense success followed, and after this, Miyazaki was asked about the possibility of a sequel, and he said, and I quote, hang on, let me just grab the quote. "I'm just an employee of the development company, so I can't directly answer whether there will be a sequel to Demon's Souls. With that said, my personal opinion is that we learned a lot during the development of Demon's Souls, and there were a lot of things that we couldn't do the first time. So I'd welcome the chance to create an even better game in the same style if the opportunity arises." I wonder if that opportunity will ever arise. Dark Souls was released in 2011 to even more success and acclaim than its younger brother. It takes what Demon's Souls did incredibly well and improves upon it, whilst adding what would become From Software's signature aesthetic, the Bonfire. Bonfires are Dark Souls versions of checkpoints, and they allow the player to heal, upgrade their character, and just take a break from the unrelenting world they are exploring. These bonfires made the Soulsborne genre complete, and from then on there was no looking back. British Souls, brev. Japanese Souls. No, I will not do a Japanese accent, okay? You cannot, don't trick me like that. Open world Souls, and 2 direct sequels later, From Software's Souls games have thrived for the past 15 years. But why? Why have these games and the subgenre they spawned caught on? To get to the answer, we need to look at the aspect the Souls-like games are most famous for and analyze what that does to a game. And that aspect is... Now, difficult games have existed since the beginning of gaming. I mean, I just spent time explaining how arcade games were purposely designed to be difficult, but by 2009, they were a relatively niche and underground subgenre when Demon's Souls was released. What Demons and Dark Souls did was grab the difficult games from underground and freaking shove them back up into the mainstream gaming consciousness. Everyone was discussing how maybe the games were a bit too hard, and even 10 years later with the release of their magnum opus Elden Ring, the difficulty was still a sticking point for some players. Even with all this, you could say, controversy, they still sold incredibly well, showing other game developers that there is a market for challenging games. Nowadays, developers aren't scared to make their games hard in case they alienate players. They know gamers are big boys and girls and can handle a little challenge. But the question still remains, why make your game hard? Well, difficulty enhances every aspect of your game. making it a better game overall. High difficulty makes combat better because defeating enemies that are hard is so much more rewarding than defeating, weak bitch baby enemies. You are fully engaged in the combat system, learning each enemy's moveset intricately so you can defeat them in the most efficient way possible, because if you take one false step, that false step will be your last. It forces you to master the combat system, and boy does it feel good when you have, and you can cut through enemies like a knife through butter. The combat system becomes so ingrained in your brain that you can put the game down, leave it for 2 months, completely forget everything, and then later pick it back up and not miss a step. High difficulty also makes in-game rewards like items, clothing and weapons that much more valuable, because if anything offers any statistical advantage at all, you're gonna grab it quicker than that dude grabbing a bag of chips. Hey! You inspect every single piece of gear for any statistical difference, because that could be the difference between, defeating a boss in the first couple tries versus dying for 3 hours straight. You are actively engaged in looting, rather than turning your brain off whilst looting, like in my favorite game that I hated, Skyrim. Because of how important items and weapons can be, it makes you want to explore every nook and cranny of the game's world, working perfectly in tandem with the high difficulty to make exploration more engaging. The high difficulty forces you to pay attention to the level design and layout, because death could be waiting around any corner. You become one with the game's world. I couldn't tell you on the map of the actual city I live in where to get anywhere, but give me a map of Yharnam and I'll tell you exactly where you need to go. Well thought out exploration can't feel meaningful without significant penalties for carelessness, and the Souls games thrive at that. Exploring a new area is so nerve-wracking the first time because you don't know what's in store for you. But then once you get the lay of the land, know every corner, every enemy location, exploration becomes so easy and you can just breeze past everything essentially. It feels like the game is rewarding you for gaining knowledge of an area by making it easier. And it feels like you're constantly learning something every time you step out into the world. Who says you can't learn anything from video games? Huh? Mum? See this? You can. Dumb bit. No, I'm joking. You become so knowledgeable on the game that you're able to just run past enemies that used to give you trouble and get straight into the boss fights, where the difficulty is amped up to 11 and the true challenge lies. Now I feel like when fighting bosses you have either one of 3 experiences. Experience 1. Defeat the boss first try because you entered a true gamer state that you didn't even know existed and just absolutely beat the shit out of them. Experience 2. Still struggle a little bit but still defeat them in a relatively normal time frame. Experience 3. Spend 4 hours on one boss because you just can't quite seem to get the hang of it until eventually you're praised every god known to man work and you somehow defeat them. Most players will experience a mix between 2 and 3, which means players will die a lot. But that's okay. Like I said earlier, Miyazaki isn't some sadist who fucking gets off on people struggling with his video games. All he wants to do is give players a sense of accomplishment when defeating a boss. I would like players to conquer the difficulty and enjoy taking on formidable enemies. The difficulty is high, but always achievable. Everyone can achieve without all that much technique. All you need to do is learn. And that is the core of the Souls games. Every death is a learning experience. You may die on this one attack the boss does you first try, but the next time you know how to dodge it. And then you die to another attack, but then you realize you can parry it. So the next time you do, and take a massive chunk of health. You keep learning every time you die, until you have eventually mastered the subject of that boss and are able to defeat it. Every time you defeat a boss in a Souls game, you feel something deep inside you. You feel like you have overcome an incredibly difficult challenge through repeated efforts and have achieved something worthwhile. And that leads me to my final point, which is okay, so you're probably wondering why I'm sitting in front of all this shit. You could say, well, I thought a good final shot would be, in front of a lit bonfire, like in the games. Oh my god. Then I remembered I live in Australia, and if I did that, the whole country would burn down. So, an unlit bonfire it is then. Life. What is the point? Some would say the point of life is to stack massive racks whilst fucking massive racks. Others would say the point of life is to procreate and continue your bloodline. Well, whatever the point of life may be, one thing is for certain. It's going to be tough. There will be a lot of challenges you have to face. And when doing so, you have two options. You either run from those challenges, never really pushing yourself, always staying in the same place, becoming very complacent. Or you face those challenges head on, and pass or fail, you use them as learning opportunities in order for you to become better. This is what the Souls games teach us, that every failure should be used as a learning experience. Now, there will be a lot of failures, like a lot. But it's what you do after those failures that matter. You know those cliche quotes like, it's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up again. Yeah, you're never gonna get me down. That is the Souls games in a nutshell. You always, no matter what, respawn, get back up, and go again. And that's what makes victory that much sweeter. Seriously, nothing will beat the feeling of finally defeating Malenia and Horolow after spending what felt like days fighting them. No movie, book, TV show, album, not even the birth of my first child will ever come close to replicating the emotions I felt whilst fighting them. The excitement I felt going into the fight for the first time that quickly turned into anger after dying like fucking 10 times in 2 minutes. Because apparently I'm just shit. The hope felt after finally getting that health bar depleted, only for it to turn into sadness when the health bar filled back up again and phase 2 started. A lot more anger. And finally, the sheer amount of joy and relief that washed over my body when those death lines were said will never be topped. And I know literally every other player had a similar experience with certain bosses. Name me another game genre that can make a man so mad he teleports back to the 1940s. And finally, when he defeats the boss, he gets so overcome with emotion that he turns into a robot and speaks a brand new language. Honestly, these are the moments that make Souls-likes, and video games in general, so special. You are pushing through and trying to overcome what, at times, feels like insurmountable odds.
What the hell is this? What?
Yo, this motherfucker!
I'm absolutely fucked up. That's just... Holy fuck, that's cancer! Give me your fucking eye. I fucking hate you. I hate you!
That's so stupid, man. Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. What?
Yo, Malenia, could you run a 40-yard dash for me? Because I'm 87% certain you could outrun Tyreek Hill on the Kansas City Chiefs right the fuck now! I was 48!
And then, when you finally do overcome those odds, you know that you did that. And you feel so good.
Someday, I will.
Hit her one time!
Someday.
Good.
Yeah. Sunday.
What?
Yes. I remember this that Someday.
I'm gonna cry.
Someday. I wanna hit the red, gotta let go. Gotcha. Let's fucking go.
Oh, I did it! Oh my god!
I've
Yes!
been trying
Yes!
to make you love me.
Dearest Mikola,
Anything is possible!
I'm sorry.
This is why Souls-likes will never die.
Someday we gon' set it off. Someday we gon' get this off. Baby, don't you bet it all on that path of heading off. You might